And hello, welcome to the online learning series for mutual aid networks. And this is session number 3 of this particular series. And the goal for this series is to be able to introduce new participants or potential participants to mutual aid networks and what they're all about, and orient people to how you might go about creating a mutual aid network in your own community. So what I will do in a moment is start with introductions. Actually, yeah, we'll start with introductions and then we'll go into the quick overview of today and the series. Give a couple more people a chance to come on if they're going to. So it would be great if you can say who you are and where you are and what it is that brings you here. And I'll start. I'm Stephanie Rierick. I'm in Paris, Paris, France. So it's 1 in the morning right now. I'm usually in Madison, Wisconsin, which is part of the reason this is timed so oddly for me, is I'm out of my time zone. But I'm a founder of Mutual Aid Networks, and I am really excited to be meeting so many people who want to pursue this in their own areas. So thank you for being here. And Janelle is with us and doesn't have a microphone. So Janelle, if you would like to type a hello to everyone in the chat and just say who you are and where you are and what brings you here, that would be great. And I see that we have at least one, I think, newcomer. So I want to make sure that you know that on the right-hand side of the screen, you should have a control panel. And if you don't see the chat, just click the triangle to the left of the word chat, and you'll be able to see that Janelle says, I am Janelle Zelko with the Neighborhood Health Centers of the Lehigh Valley. So thanks so much for being here, Janelle. Good to see you on here. And Julia, you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Julia Ho. I'm based in St. Louis, Missouri. We have a mutual aid network site here called Solidarity Economy St. Louis, and I'm just kind of starting to get more involved with the mutual aid network. So yeah.
Thank you. And Nathan?
Morning, guys. Nathan Surendran from Invercargill in New Zealand. So it's 11 in the morning here, and I am part of a time bank that we've just started up here at Invercargill, but more generally interested in the whole complementary currency space and the potential for that to have better economic outcomes for people in the local area.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for joining. And is there anyone else with us who hasn't had a chance to say hello yet? Okay, so, oops, I always change slides by accident. So we are here to go a little bit deeper over time into learning about how we can come together as mutual aid networks. So this is episode number 3, titled Vision to Action. So the goal for today is that we will leave this session with an understanding of how to move from identifying a common vision to beginning collective action. So this is really about establishing common goals with a group of people, often a very small group of people, and then moving forward in bringing together who you will need and getting a picture of what you will need in order to accomplish your goals. And as I said, this is number 3 of the series, so I just wanted to show you the rest of the series. Sorry, my screen really does just jump around. So the first one was orienting potential new participants to an overview of mutual aid networks, and we're recording all of these as we go, so if you've missed any, you can access them from our website. The second one last week was communications training, just learning how to do a bit of an elevator pitch, identify messages that can be compelling to your audience and how to get them across. Then today is vision, mission, and aim, and the mapping who your core team would be. And we've come up with a catchier title, which is From Vision to Action. Next week, it'll be facilitation and some basics in sociocracy, which is a form of governance that we have been experimenting with. Deeply inclusive and yeah, just some pretty forward-thinking governance. Then the next session will be about tools and their application, so orienting you to software that we're using for project management and exchange, but also specific exchange and sharing tools for resources. And then robust budgeting for projects and participants, how we can create a vision of a basic human livelihood that includes a wide array of resources in addition to money and displacing our need for money. And then last and certainly not least, the Enjoyable Life workshop, where we go into how we redesign our work lives and our lives in general so we can have a good livelihood while being full human beings engaging in the breadth of human activity that we want to. So, any questions so far? Okay. And here's our overall sort of,
Sorry,
yeah.
Stephanie. Just a quick question. So I'm sharing this learning with the guys as part of the time bank that I've been involved in the start of. Is there you had you recorded last week's session? Have you put that online yet? Is there a link to that? Because I went onto the web page with the learning series online, and there's only a link to the first section so far, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just haven't done it yet because I've been traveling,
Right.
but good reminder.
Yeah.
So I'll try to get this and that up tomorrow. We actually have a half day off. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. And then also that reminded me to put the link to these slides in the chat so you can grab those too and share those anytime. But yes, I will put the recording up as soon as possible. So thank you.
Thank you.
So then this is just the diagram of sort of the mechanics of a mutual aid network, but you'll see it's not all mechanical. That there's a good amount of technical assistance and developing social processes and then sharing our learning that's built into mutual aid networks. And this is part of that process. So, just going a bit into vision, mission, aims, and everybody has a little bit different way to construe this. So actually, I just made up the wording for some of these things just tonight. So I'm very interested in hearing other people's perspectives on these. So this is how I put it. And I just want to stress, as always, everything in mutual aid networks is really, this is intended to be like I'm the teacher who knows all the things to impart to you. We learn together, and I learn. I'm just sharing my own experience and things that I've learned from others, and then we expect all these ideas to develop much more with your own input and experiences. So don't assume that we think that all these things are exactly right or that there is anything that's exactly right. So the way I construed it is the questions why, what, and how. So the vision is the why. And as I put it here, is we tend to express it as images or what the world looks like when we've succeeded. What's the beautiful world we're imagining? Then the mission is what? What's some collective action that can be taken to meet the needs that are presented by the vision? We'll go into that wording a little bit more as we start discussing this. And then the aims are how. How do we accomplish that? What are the concrete steps that we can take to accomplish that mission? And then I added the measurable outcomes because that's very important. How do we know that we're working in the direction of our vision? And that can be expressed in actions and numbers. Who does what, when, and how? Who is impacted and how? So now I would just want to give you all a chance to say what your own perspective is on vision, mission, and aims. You don't have to throw in, you're welcome to listen to the other discussion, but I'd like to hear how you've construed vision, mission, and aims if this is a process that you've done in your groups. Nathan?
I'm just trying to think about that. So we I mean, we haven't really, I guess, gone into the detail of exactly why, other than for the time bank, other than effectively stealing the link from the description from the time banking site, which is time bank is a way of giving and receiving to build supportive networks and strong communities. 1 hour helping another earns one time bank hour, and so it's quite a functional description. And I guess it's more of a how almost than a why.
And
I'm just starting to think I'm saying it.
that's I'm really happy that you brought that up. The majority of the times that I've done a session about this has been in a purely time banking context, going around and doing time banking trainings, and it is really common that people don't express an explicit vision in a time bank and or explicit mission. And when that's the case, I generally say the mission, it's a community building mission, which is a great mission to have. Um, I do, I experience going and visiting time banks and doing these kind of things, that time banks that have sort of distilled a message of their vision and mission um, a bit more explicitly, whether it's a
Yeah,
community building mission or whether it's a mission to, alleviate poverty in a specific neighborhood or things like
yeah.
that. The more
I,
clearly we can articulate our vision and mission, the easier it is to attract people who are really excited by it.
Yeah. We did actually have a little discussion about vision. I've just found the posts in the Facebook group. So we had two people who offered a vision for the Morihiku Time Exchange, which is what we've called ourselves. One is a caring and connected community offering time instead of money.
Hmm.
And then the other one is that it becomes the foundation of a new economy where we consume less, share more, and all have more time with our families, help towards creating a resilient community where we all know our neighbours.
All right.
So, a couple of attempts at it.
And when you're saying that, creating a resilient community where we all are where we all know our neighbors, that's the vision. That's a really lovely image that you
Yeah,
create right there. Wonderful.
yeah, yeah.
Julia, did you want to add anything about your experience with crafting a vision and mission and aims, or how you break these out? Are they any different from this, or any experience you want to share?
Um, I don't actually. I feel like this is something that I have not had as much experience with in general. I mean, for me, it's always been I have a hard time sort of distilling these things into small, really short things, and it's for me, I tend to like work much more in like a one-on-one setting or like in settings where I have to do the elevator pitch kind of thing where I just like say something really briefly. And I feel like part of the advantage of working in that way is that I get to really adapt my message a lot based on who I'm talking to and to really like find different ways to say essentially the same thing but resonating in many different ways. So I feel like that's one sort of I definitely agree that everything that we're doing should have a vision, a mission, and an aim. But at the same time, I also think that a lot of my message or the way that I talk varies pretty significantly depending on what settings I'm in.
Yes, and that's extremely helpful and appropriate generally. I want to go back to the mission that we created for mutual aid networks, and just share a little bit about the crafting of that mission statement. Um, so the vision of mutual aid networks. I don't know if we actually have written down in any form. And I don't know if we've ever actually, frankly, uh, created something that we consider a vision statement. We kind of went right to a mission statement. Um, and so I think actually what I'm going to do, I'll just start with the mission statement because we're going to go through a little bit of a process about that we've been doing in our strategic planning, some impact mapping where we kind of evaluate um, the conditions that we want to change in the world and how it leads to our mission. But we spent a lot of time crafting this mission, and really, yeah, were very careful about the language we used, and I'm really pleased with it. It's the only time I've ever been part of an organization where the mission statement just rolls right off my tongue, and I'm happy to say it, and it's easy to say and easy to remember. Um, but it is to create means for everyone to discover and succeed in work they want to do with the support of their community. And we really took a lot of pains to express this in the way we wanted to. The word empower came up, and we realized we don't want to put empower in this. We don't have any power to give other people. We don't give them power. What we want to do is create means, and we chose explicitly to use the word everyone because we very explicitly want to create something that engages everyone on the planet. And for me, part of establishing a solid vision and mission, um, no matter how big it is, I think it's really, for me, I feel it's very important to have the hugeness of your vision embodied in the seed of your project, just like a plant, has a tiny version of itself in the seed. Um, Even if you need to just pick one little place, well, everyone needs to pick one little place and start there in order to get toward any big vision. But I feel like it's really important to articulate that the bigness of the vision, so you know where you're going. Um, so then discovering and succeeding in work they want to do, just we were just really acknowledging that that was going to be a really important part of achieving our vision for a world where everyone is really reaching their maximum human potential. I mean, that really is sort of the overall vision: is everyone on the planet deserves to have as good a life as possible in their time on this earth. So a lot of times people never even get a chance to find out what they enjoy doing because they aren't given the opportunity to have a wide variety of experiences. And the work they want to do, of course, is another aspect that we think about carefully, because we want people to be joyful in their lives with the support of their community. That embodying that this whole mutual aid network project is about do it ourselves, economic justice, and community resilience. So that's the mission of the main mutual aid network, and to us that expresses the what we do to get to this, everyone having an opportunity to be fulfilled as a human being, or a better opportunity than they do right now. Any questions or comments on that? Okay. And jump in anytime. I know it takes a little while to come off mute, but I don't want to pause too long each time in case people don't have something to jump in with, but please do anytime. So one of the really important pieces in establishing your vision, so just I'm going to just the very beginning of a process of beginning a project. A lot of times it starts with one person, or it starts with a couple of people who have a conversation and decide to do something about it. One of the things that I think is really important at the beginning is clarify the values that you share. Be sure you're discussing very thoroughly. And as our board president, John Rogers, says, you need constant clarification. And what do you mean by those values in practice? And continually revisiting and making sure you're on the same page. And then being able to communicate those and being willing to communicate those to the world. So in my experience, well, everything that we're talking about doing is highly collaborative. But I think it's really important for the initial founders of a project to have a clear enough set of your own principles of what you really want to be working toward, that you can communicate with other people, to have that kernel of a vision, but also not have it fully formed, because you need to be able to invite people in to helping shape that vision. And they need to have a sense of ownership over it also, and they need to be able to apply their own values as long as they match with yours. But I think it's really important to have your core values really clarified, because you don't want to create a situation where you invite people into a project and then it turns into something you wouldn't want to work on. So I wanted to give some examples from the life of mutual aid networks. And the first one is we started off as a project called Time for the World. Um, and what we were doing was we were having great experience with time banking, but really seeing right away the limitations of time banking on its own. And we always knew we wanted sort of a system that could flow and thrive and become self-sustaining and self-regenerating and self-perpetuating, self-propagating. And we had really specific ideas of how that could happen. So that was the project that we wanted to start. And it was really based on, I mean, really fundamentally, the conversation was how can we take peer to peer values based exchange mechanism like time banking and connect it with open source hardware and software tools and practices. We felt that if we could take those things and connect them up, that we could create a system that would flow like water. So that was really key to us. So at the very beginning, we set up something that we referred to at the time as non-negotiables. People found that terminology a little bit too harsh, but it was really important for us as we were taking this on the road and presenting it to people and looking for potential partners. And we needed to be sure that people knew we weren't willing to deviate from certain things. So if you look at these projects, so we changed it though to adapt to people's feelings that it was a bit too harsh to say non-negotiable. So we called it Project Givens and Principles, and we put it very visible on our website. So we say here is just sort of our beliefs that it's based on. And I really like, this was my partner on the project's wording, that he says, all of these are worthy areas for conversation. However, we want to be clear on where we stand, as agreement to support these points is needed for core participants in the project to share a common baseline. So just really attempting to communicate clearly why we were doing this. And then these were the pieces. Time banking basically works and is a valid liquidity mechanism. Anyhow, so and that we'll use the tools that we're talking about. We'll use time banking to accomplish our goals. We'll use co-production. We'll use the core values of time banking. And I like how he phrased this. Core values of time banking will be interpreted locally and upheld globally. So just acknowledging there's room for different types of interpretations of time banking values, but that they were going to be very important. Then transparency, open processes and tools, freedom of use, reuse, and modification, and mutual expectations of reciprocity. So everything about this project from the beginning has been really attempting to embody the values, the values that we're looking to express in the world. Any questions? So then another example, then as we built into mutual aid networks, as you know, we started connecting a number of different kinds of tools and different kinds of organizational structures. And we needed a more robust set of core principles that we needed, and we're asking people to really make a commitment in mutual aid networks, becoming pilot sites, becoming members, sharing their work. And we do intend to uphold mutual aid network pilot sites around the world to show good practices and really encourage people to replicate what individual sites are doing. So we need to be sure that everyone is on the same page about what values we're embodying. So we spent quite a bit of time. It wasn't me personally. It was several of our team members, Chris Petit and Scott Murto and Edge Brussel, and a number of people around the country had a job of taking the core principles of time banking, then also the Elinor Ostrom's principles of governance of the commons, and then also principles from the Rochdale cooperative principles, and then distilling them into these mutual aid network core principles. And right now we have Scott Murto joining us, and Scott did a lot of work on these core principles. So you're just in time, Scott. Hello. You there? So we can't hear you yet, but I'm just going to start going through these just as bullet points. And if you'd like to jump in, Scott, and take over in your own voice, you are more than welcome to. But meanwhile, I'm just going to do this. So redesigning work in time banking, it's phrased as redefining work, but we are talking about redesigning work. We recognize that everyone possesses passions and skills which they can contribute to their communities and the larger man network. And we will work to find the highest uses to which those qualities and abilities can be put. Reciprocity, I won't read all the definitions. Respect, voluntary and open membership, democratic member control, member economic participation, autonomy and independence, education, training, and information that we all explicitly agree to support each other with technical support. Mutual aid among mutual aid networks, tracking and performance measures. So we're looking for really good performance measures that, again, take into account a lot of types of outcomes that often get overlooked. So we're not just looking at the mechanical, the numerical outcomes of exchanges or wealth generation. We're looking at really how lives and communities are improved, how dynamics are changed. And tools and processes, we take a wide view of tools that can be used, but they also need to meet the core principles. And then building community sustainability into the future. So Scott, do you have audio yet?
People hear me?
Yes. Hello.
Mm-hmm.
Good, finally. Hello.
Quite faint, but so, and actually, Nathan, Scott, you'll like this, and I'm guessing that you're probably familiar with this. Do you see that Nathan just posted the post-growth org charter with their principles?
Oh, this is new. Hmm.
Yeah, so that's nice. I'm guessing I was just thinking you'd probably be familiar with this, but it seems right up your alley.
Right. Yeah. Can I just jump in quickly? Yeah, I mean, I've really, to me, time banking, alternative currencies, etc., are about getting away from the need for a growth imperative in our economic systems and in our monetary system, and all of the problems that leads to. And I think that the post-growth charter for me is one of the best documents I've seen that summarizes all of the considerations. And in particular, there's a lot of talk about green growth and so on. I think we can have growth in well-being, but not growth in economic activity going forward because of the biophysical limits in place. And I really like the way that this charter puts all of that. I think for me, it's really important to have that as part of the conversation around, the why of what we're trying to achieve.
Yes, excellent. And that is definitely a big piece about it's a big piece of what we want to develop in our evaluation tools and sort of guidelines. Scott, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, I'd love to. Uh, Great comments there, Nathan, and thanks for posting that. I think what's important uh, to keep in mind is that part of what we're doing here is redefining terms and concepts that have become problematic and sometimes result in sort of polarized views on things. And besides wealth, the whole concept of growth itself, because there are certain aspects of the economy we want to see grow. At least I think the majority of folks working in the MAN do. Collaborative, community-based, cooperative type economic activities should be growing as competitive ones are decreasing. So what we're trying to do is to redefine those terms in ways that are more meaningful and more descriptive and result in less polarizations in the discussions of the nature of the whole global economy and what it is and what it's becoming and what we'd like it to become.
Yeah.
And you see that dynamic of that, how that term results in that in the debates about the degrowth economy that or movement that came out of France, and some an ongoing sort of debate going on whether or not that term, degrowth, we should even be using it, because it does evoke such reactions, and sort of like ends up cutting off dialogue in some ways that other terms do and have that same polarizing effect.
Mm.
Anything else on this? All right, and then go ahead.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
But it's a good, this is one of the examples where we clarify our common values and we're open to adaptation and make sure that we embody these in practice.
Yeah. Well, I guess on that note, just a comment to say, I think it is extremely important at this point in time to recognise the limits that we have to work within, and what that implies about solution spaces that are available to us going forward. Because it's not a case of we could do anything and let's choose to do something more sustainable.
Yes.
In many respects, it's the case of we have some very strong biophysical drivers around limits to growth that are going to limit our ability. And I guess for me, the simple way of putting it is the two choices we have are to react, or are to plan proactively and try and get ahead of the curve, or be kind of dragged kicking and screaming to the party a little bit. And I'm very much an advocate for proactive planning, which I see the mutual aid networks as being a key part of.
Great
Comments, Nathan. Thank you, and I totally agree with you. And that's why we have written that biophysical limits to growth in as a core principle, because we recognize that it's important to take those into account. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, and I should have actually read that last one aloud, because I did just say very briefly. What'd you say, Nathan?
I was just reading that last one now. I hadn't seen that in there, but yes, absolutely. That number 12 is key.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, and I don't think you'll find number 12 in any other cooperative charters or core values. If you will, it's very limited and local. So yeah, we want to integrate that in from the very beginning.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah.
Thank you. All right, so I wanted to provide people with this tool that we have used just a little bit. That we've been doing some work with Sociocracy 3.0, which is a deeply inclusive mode of governance that I think is extremely promising, and we've really enjoyed it so far, even though there's much more to learn, and it's always under development. But as we're starting to engage in this strategic planning process, our Sociocracy 3.0 trainer, James, mentioned this approach to impact mapping. And I just want to draw your attention to it, because I think it can really help establish solid vision, mission, and aims. It's construed a little bit differently, but one of the things that I think is really important, and it takes a little while sometimes to get used to the terminology of the driver, but at the very beginning, you name the driver for the process that you're doing. And what that really means is, what need are you trying to fill, or what problem are you trying to solve? So a lot of times, for example, with time banking, I love time banking. That's, it's completely led to this. It's very core to this project. But often you start a time bank because you want to start a time bank and you have a sense, it's going to do something cool. or I mean, I see this even more in the complementary currency, like in a local currency context that's more sort of like a market based tied to money currency. It's like, oh, it'd be great. We know we need a different economy. We have to start a currency. Well, a lot of times we forget to really evaluate what are the needs that we're trying to fill. And sometimes when you start really drilling down to the needs that you're trying to fill, the tool that you've chosen or the action you've chosen actually doesn't meet those needs. So, this mapping process I find to be really helpful because when you name the driver for what you're doing, and I think I want to change this slide. Sorry, I'm just adjusting these slides as I go, but I want to document some of the things that you're saying and just kind of clarify things while we're doing this. Um, but it's not really, I don't want to say driver for the mapping process. It's really the driver for, your whole coming together. Why are you even here discussing this? There clearly must be some desire in you, some kind of need. Um, so I guess I would like if you want to, Nathan, well, any of you, if you want to say, what are the needs that you are trying to fill in your local community that have led you to wanting to do a project like what you're doing, and then we can share some things that we came up with in the main man. But I'm curious to hear what you have.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Well, I'll go first if nobody else has put their hand up. Anybody else? No. Okay. All right. For me, the driver for the time banking is to have. It's kind of a public education thing. I think we're so far from people understanding some of the issues that we've touched on in that last part of this conversation. That really. Having networks of people who are working together in time banking because it works for them, because it allows them to do things that are impactful, things that they have a passion for, etc. Then also that allows us to have a conversation around, well, why does this work for us, and what? So I see very much complementary currency, mutual aid networks, time banking, all as being um, really things that are educational in their essence, and I think that's the main driver for me. Is you can't say what the big picture issues that are going to lead to the problems that we have and lead to the overall you know sorry they're going to lead to how am I saying this? Sorry, I've lost my train of thought. We can't see the future, but if people are better educated about alternatives, and the example I've heard of quite a bit is, during the Great Depression, it wasn't that the food wasn't there, it's that the currency wasn't there to support the exchange that was needed to take the food to the people. And it's that sort of space that I'm trying to, work to give people those alternatives.
Great.
Hmm. I can add something to that quickly. Something that you sort of already mentioned, but I think is part of built into the mission of our time bank is moving people from like a place of scarcity to a place of abundance. And so I think that's a big driver for us in our time bank, but also in our solidarity economy work. It's just kind of like addressing the driver is like needing to address this mindset that resources are scarce, that is in part ways created by currency, created by money, but actually is not the way in which things like human, creative potential or the ability, like what you're saying, the access to resources that we need sustainably, those things are abundant. But we need to think of tools like time banking and other means to get people to start thinking in that way and to then start working in a cooperative manner. And then the other thing, which is something that you said earlier, which was that being able to allow people to live to their full potential. And I think that is definitely related in many ways, is that most people living in a mindset of scarcity don't feel that they can live to their full potential. And so getting people out of that mindset frees them up to do that.
Absolutely. Yes. And those all match pretty much what we established as the drivers for the main man, sort of people enslaved by this economic system that promotes this fake scarcity. And then I heard you both talk about implicitly and explicitly about people's awareness of that, people's awareness that it can be different. That those are some of the things that we want to accomplish to help fill the need is just make people aware that there are options that are different and that we can pursue them and have happier lives. Scott, did you want to add anything? Okay. So I'm
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, I would just like to add one thing is as we're talking about and putting our team together and thinking about our asset mapping project here, we're looking at this as a tool to uh, that could be really powerful to identify all these unused assets that we have in our communities, both in people's lives and skills, and in terms of physical capital and financial capital. And we're finding that to be a really good sort of organizing activity that will be able to address a lot of problems simultaneously through that positive, like what Julia was talking about. There really is much less scarcity in terms of our abilities than people realize in our assets and things. And so we're just really excited about using the mapping process
great.
for that.
Great. And Janelle has just typed something into the chat. Sorry, Janelle, I haven't been calling on you just because I've been thinking that I've been forgetting you could type in the chat. But so Janelle's saying the driver for our neighborhood project at the neighborhood health centers has been to create a welcoming community for everyone, with focus on vulnerable populations such as refugee populations, formerly incarcerated individuals, homeless population, teens aging out of foster care, individuals who struggle with complex illnesses. And actually, that's an excellent segue into the next part of this impact mapping that is a great exercise to do, which is who will be impacted. And you need to think about everyone. We who are carrying out a project, pilot sites, people in the public, people in politics. And then what do they need? What can we do as an organization to support the desired impacts? What actions, services, products, and principles are required to meet the needs? And we group them into actions, services, things to produce, principles, values to foster, and evaluate what can help the overall process if it can stand in the way. So this is just, I'm just talking you through this very briefly, and I wanted to put these all in the slide so you could use it later as a tool. And then I also put a link to Sociocracy 3.0. So please feel free to take and use this stuff and share with the rest of us how it's working for you. And then we go into what can we do to respond to opportunities and potential impediments and group those. And then that helps lead us into our specific actions, which helps lead us into understanding what we want those measurable outcomes to be. So this impact mapping thing can sort of take you from the vision to the measurable outcomes through this series of questions. So I'm going to really recommend just trying this out and seeing if it can help you really get some clarity. And then once you have the kernel of your vision, you just really need to start looking at that will need to shape how you need to flesh out your core team. And I threw an idea in here that I just really want to share because it's been really helpful to me just over time and doing a lot of community projects. You probably all been in a situation where you start working on something and then people fall away and it's very discouraging. And it happens over and over in organizations. Then a couple of years ago, I was at a training and someone in a workshop that I was at said, there are 3 different kinds of people who carry out a project. Some people are planters, some people are farmers, some people are harvesters. And often the same people aren't all 3. So once he put that in perspective for me, it just shifted everything, and it made it much less anxiety producing when those natural cycles occurred of people falling away. So it really helped me to realize that anytime you're doing a project, you start with your planters, you need to be recruiting your farmers as you're going, and then you need to be recruiting your harvesters, or maybe not you, because maybe you are a planter and you're gone by then, but recruiting the harvesters as you're going. That's one of the reasons in I forgot to show you in our mutual aid network pilot site agreement or application, we ask you about your succession plans. So we ask who's on your team and what are your goals, and we ask about the community you plan to serve and the geographic scope, the overview, but who are the collaborators, partners, and networks, and decision-making process, governance structure, but then your proposed stewardship succession plan. So we just really want to help alleviate the situation where a lot of times one person carries something for a long time, gets overburdened, and then has to drop it, and the whole project falls away. We're just really aiming to embody and model and assist each other to do practices that give us all the best chance for, I'm going to use the word success, but I don't really like to use the word success, and it was actually kind of hard to avoid in this context. But we really want to really remind people all the time that there's no such thing as failure in a context like this, when we're really about experimenting and sharing and innovating. Anything that you do, if you learn that it doesn't work, it really helps all of us. So we don't want people to think in terms of success and failure, but we do need to think in terms of, are we heading in a direction toward the vision that we initially established? So that's how we sort of measure success, but we don't want to call it success. We want to be just true to our visions. So any thoughts on that before we just go a little bit? We could do an example of how we would establish a core team for a particular vision. Do you have does anybody want to comment on anything at this point or ask anything? So let's talk about one of the visions. I mean, they're all they're quite similar. What Janelle wrote out is more explicit about about the people that she's looking to reach. So, do you want to? Yeah. So let's go ahead and take an example of a one of these visions and how we might identify who we need to start, hammering out a plan, and before we sort of invite the public in, who might we need to realize one of these visions. So if it's more of a community building vision, yeah, actually, Nathan, would you mind repeating one of the mission statements that you said for the time bank? There was either one.
Yep, sure. Hang on one second. I'll just find this. Oh God, where is it? Right, okay. So Morihiko Time Exchange helps towards creating a resilient community where we all know our neighbours.
Great. So who might be, and we'll just talk about the planters for now, because we're really talking about the core team to launch. And so who are some of the people that we would probably need to start establishing a plan to realize that vision? And anyone can.
Yeah. I guess people who are extroverts, who don't mind going out and talking about it.
That's great. Yeah. Everyone needs that at the beginning of a core team or early in a core team.
I think also people who can think over a long term, even if they can't envision themselves being there for a long term, just like being able to think about what the long-term vision is.
Yes. Definitely. Anyone else you can?
Um, oh, uh, I was thinking, this is Patricia, somebody who has credibility and already has influence and who shares the values.
Excellent. I am going to take notes on that. Hi, I didn't realize you were here, so welcome. Sorry I haven't acknowledged you yet.
Well, I came in late. No problem.
Cool. So can you say that again? People who...
People who have credibility and influence, they already have people who listen to them,
mm-hmm.
and then who share the values of the man.
Great. And would you like?
I'm actually thinking. Yeah. I was gonna say I was actually thinking about my son who's 26, and they're in the Ozarks. My son and all of his friends. They're about his age and younger, and they're interested in creating a time bank out in the middle of nowhere in the Ozarks.
Great.
And I really think this could happen.
Excellent. Wonderful. And do you want to just introduce yourself very quickly to the other people here?
Oh, sure. I'm Patricia Mickelson. I'm in the Bay Area right now. I'm from the Ozarks, and I am really passionate about man. I think it's what I've been working towards my whole life and combines every aspect of everything in the past 40 years I've been working on.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. It's really good to virtually meet you.
Yes, great.
So we just have 5 minutes left, and obviously this is a super quick and dirty overview, like all of these 1 hour long web meetings will be. The point of this is to give you a taste of some of the basics that we need to come together and do these kinds of projects successfully, and then of course, the point of the main man and mutual aid networks in general is that we will continue to develop and compile and point to all kinds of resources and provide in-person technical and moral support for each other. But I think it's really important as people are embarking on a project to sort of have an overview of what you might expect and what are some of the things that you'll want to put into place in order to have a good chance of meeting your goals. So anyhow, with the time in mind, I'm inclined to move on from this. I think that this is pretty significant piece of what you need in a core team from the beginning, because right away you're going to be recruiting other partners, but extroverts who can communicate the vision, people who can think long term in order to be able to develop a strategy and recruit the future partners who will be needed, and people who have credibility and influence and share the core values. Are we missing anyone? I actually realize I think we are missing an important element, which would be someone or someones who are able to take full responsibility and accountability, who will take, and I'm going to say full accountability for stewardship. And I don't mean that like one person carries the project forever. And I'm going to say that not one person who carries the project forever, but one person who will carry the project when other people drop it for as long as they need to until they've recruited their successor. So,
can I just add to that first sentence as well? Who can communicate the vision and network? I think that's another really key part of that person. Is, the networking side of things. So
they're good at networking. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Good at networking. All right. Not one person who carries the whole project, but one person who will catch it whenever it's being dropped, and so they've found a successor. Anyone want to comment on that, differ with that? And for me, that's one of the most beautiful and sometimes most challenging things to achieve is just finding the people who will be the buck stops here. Um, it's not enough that there's a good reason the thing didn't get done that was so crucial. We do what we can to make sure it happens, and that we don't let the project drop. Um, of course, there are times when a project should die and it's ready to die, and it doesn't mean you have to carry something along that's, you don't want to drag something along, but I think it's just really important for someone or several people to feel very accountable to the project. Oops, sorry. So we just have a couple minutes left, but I did want to give a chance to yeah, I guess my question is, it is 1 minute before the hour's up, and we can either close out or we can take a couple minutes to talk about challenges people have faced and how they've surmounted them, just very briefly. Do people want to take 5 more minutes?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay. So, Julia, do you have things to share, or did you want to take us through this a little bit?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to just put a question out there for everybody on like what have been people's main challenges in trying to both think about their mission, vision, and aims, but kind of, I guess, more specifically in like assembling their core team. Like, what have the biggest challenges been for people, and are there particular questions that people have around those challenges?
My own experience is that I've been interested in time banking for a good 5 or 6 years, and it's only in the last 6 months or so I've actually found, we've connected with the right sort of people that it's actually starting to happen.
I missed the last part you said, and you're distorting a little bit. I think maybe you might be a little too close to your mic, but I didn't understand the last thing that you said.
Yeah, just that it's taken time to connect with people who share a vision for phone banking and who are excited enough to actually do something with it.
Okay, I just still didn't understand what you actually were saying. Is it muffly for other people?
Yeah, I had a hard time hearing it.
Likewise.
I'm sorry. I would totally repeat what you said, Nathan, but I don't know what it was.
Hi there, is there any better?
Maybe you could type something in the chat, but something has changed because you were clear before. So seems like to me it sounds like being too close to the mic, but I don't know. Okay, so while he's typing,
Yeah.
or Julia, did you have something you wanted to?
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah. While he's typing, does anybody else have something that they want to add?
It's Patricia. I have something.
Mm-hmm.
I found that the main problem I've had in doing community organizing in the last 40 years is that I haven't had enough time. And when I was raising my children, then I really had little time. And so now I have created a life where my needs are very minimal, and I have a lot more time, and I raise kids who are in alignment with my values. So I have hope that I can now proceed finally, in addition to meditating and fostering a spiritual life, so that I don't get all emotional about things. That was a really big problem I used to have.
Okay, so
yeah, so I heard a few different things there. So one is sort of what you're saying is just not having the time to pursue the passions that you want to pursue. And I think that's a huge barrier for lots of people, which is why, I mean, for me, it's like a huge motivation behind some of the time banking and the mutual aid network stuff is finding ways to meet people's needs in a way that allows them to pursue the things they care about. But the other thing I heard was just, I mean, something that's related to that that I see a lot is burnout. And I think that is a little bit related also to this point of people cycling in and out of projects, with people just getting really, really burnt out kind of over a short period of time. So yeah, I don't know if people have people ever had have specific strategies or things that they want to share about how to address that issue?
Great comment, Julia. I'd like to say something to that, and I think it's important to plan on burnout for your key people in advance because it's going to happen, and to just sort of talk about it up front, that it may happen, not that it's going to happen to everybody, but it does happen with such frequency that I think it's important to have sort of a temporary succession plan in place on any of these kind of things that we're doing, because it's just a fact of life. It happens, and to just be prepared for it, and say, hey, okay, Louis needs to take a break, and let's, Sarah said she'd be willing to take over a leadership role, and it frees people up to say, hey, that's all right, I can take a break at some point. But that's a really good point, Julia.
I'm thinking with the taking a while to connect with others who have a vision for time banking, one of the approaches that I've seen work and that's worked for us. I mean, this is a reason to do projects that are facilitated with time banking, because then they see it. Then it's the vision doesn't have to be in their head because they can see. Although I guess if you're assembling your core team, you can't really do it. But one of the things, well, actually, here's a way that you can. It's really helped us to show video from other time banking projects. So with a lot of different focuses, but we have some video from Janelle's project in the Lehigh Valley. That was really compelling to people and helped people develop a vision for a health and wellness project in Madison. We have a video from West Virginia Time Bank where they're assembling and installing solar panels. And each time we've shown videos like this at home, people get really jazzed about it. It opens their whole imagination up into what they could do. So that's a suggestion for you, Nathan. Well, it sounds like you've surmounted that now, but when people are having a hard time getting excited about time banking itself, just show what can be done with it. So I'm going to say show video, do projects as examples. We are enough over time that we should start closing out. But I do want to give people a chance to respond to this. So let's just go around the circle, and if you have other solutions to any of these things, throw them in, and then just give your checkout, and we'll finish after this round, if that's okay. So Scott, did you have anything you wanted to say to this?
No. Well, maybe just one thing is to just be really gentle with people, and just to. Sometimes I think we're hard on ourselves individually because all of us are really driven to make the world a better place, and change as much as we possibly can. And when it kind of sometimes takes a little longer than we'd like, we're kind of hard on ourselves. And I think it's really important to just be real easy, first of all, on ourselves and then other people involved in this process. I think that's important. And to celebrate, yes. Have frequent celebrations, because we deserve it.
I just added celebrate every little success.
Thank you for adding that. That was perfect.
No problem. Patricia, do you want to add anything else and then close out? or check out, I mean. Anything you want to add here, Patricia?
Oh, yeah, sure. Thank you. One of the things I'm planning on doing is creating a team where we actually live together with the team members' families in an eco village, so on our land, so that we can just share meals and chores and share life together. Because the thing that I want to do is so big. I think that's what it's going to take.
Yes, great. That's a really significant commitment. Cool. And Nathan, you have anything to add here, and then a quick checkout?
I don't know. Can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. So I was just popping a few things in the comments, so you can add them in if you want to. But yeah, you know, I just agree with some points that people have been making about simplifying, just not playing the game of general society. So you know, getting really back to basics so you can live on less, and that frees up time. And I think you know, it's really important for other people to see as well, if you're you know, a proponent of these things, that you are really walking the talk. You know.
Great. And I just added simplify and embody your goals into this.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Julia?
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add that I haven't heard or kind of mentioned before is this idea of building trust. And I've heard people say different things along the lines of like, change only happens at the speed of trust, or stuff like that. And I really do think that all of the relationships we're trying to build have to be based on mutual trust in order for us to take mutual risk together. And so, whatever people are doing to build their core needs to be rooted in things that you're doing to build trust with each other. So
great. Build trust. And Janelle doesn't have a microphone, but she said this is very helpful and says thank you, everyone. And I am checking out by saying an hour goes really fast, which is probably good when I'm starting at 1 in the morning. It feels like we've barely just scratched the surface because this is a big topic, but hopefully it provides a bit of grounding, and I look forward to developing these ideas more over time and being able to have good support that we can provide for each other and for new projects coming on based around some of what we've done today. So I really appreciate your taking the time to be here. And next week we will be talking about facilitation, and we'll go a little bit more into sociocracy. And so please join us for any and all of this series, and it's a pleasure getting to know you, and I'm excited that we're all working together on this, on creating means for everyone to discover and succeed in work they want to do with the support of their community. So thank you, everyone, and have a great day or night, whatever the case may be for you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, everyone.